We are going to do yet another great story from someone who is using what we're covering here today in this boot camp in combination with everything that we've introduced so far in the success path to do some really cool things, so you can kind of get a sense for some ideas on how you might be able to tie what we're covering here at this boot camp into your overall business and fit all the pieces together in, of course, our success path. And I'm really excited to bring a very special guest, the one, the only Miss Jo Formosa, here in just a moment, who will be dialing in just a minute from Queensland in Australia on the other side of the world. I just have so much respect for those of you who are joining us in a different time zone right now, just the dedication, the courage, the grit, and everything that you bring. And of course, I would be remiss not to also mention her amazing coach, who just also happens to be the one, the only incredible Ms. Nikki Jensen as well. So Jo and Nikki, I'd love to welcome you both to the session.
Hello.
Hi,
again.
Ryan.
How's it going? It's awesome to see you here, Jo.
Yeah, it's going great. I'm here in actually Noosa in Queensland because I'm actually on leave at the moment. So it's a little bit even more exotic.
Very, very cool. So listen, I did not do much to introduce you and your market and your business. So before we kind of dive into some cool things that you're doing and some of the results that you've gotten, maybe you could just kind of set the stage for everyone here. Just tell us a little bit about your business. Who do you serve and what do you sell?
Sure. So I've been an Ayurvedic practitioner for over 25 years. So I'm in the health industry. So I serve entrepreneurs, business owners, and business leaders in how to actually have a personalized path to health. Because if you are wanting to be the best in your business, you need to be the best vehicle for your business. So that's mainly who we serve.
Now, before you started kind of implementing the success path in earnest, which we're going to get to in just a minute, which some really cool stuff's happening in your business right now, can you just kind of give us a sense, give us some context? What was your business like? What were you doing? What were the stress points? What were the points of frustration in your business that led you to kind of make some of the shifts that you've made in the last year?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things is I actually have a clinic in Brisbane, Australia. So I've been running a clinic for such a long time, over 25 years. And it's brick and mortar. So you're actually stuck to a location. And I remember when I actually made the transition to go, okay, I'm only able to serve people in Brisbane or in Queensland. And there are a lot more people in the world. And there's not a lot of us as Ayurvedic practitioners around the world who are actually teaching people personalized health. And so I met a guy called Roger Hamilton, which I know that you know. Roger has created a profiling system called Wealth Dynamics, which is understanding who your genius is in your mind. And I was at an event one day and I said to Roger, I actually think that we can create a program which is linking the Chinese medicine and the Ayurvedic medicine together for the first time. And he said, I actually think we could, because the Wealth Dynamics is the Chinese medicine, modality and elements, and the Ayurvedic medicine is understanding how it all interlinks. And he goes, yeah, let's call it Health Dynamics. And this was just at an event, right? So he was speaking and I spoke to him. And then all of a sudden that idea came up. And I was in Bali, and when I was in Bali, the volcano hit. And he goes, well, why don't you stay a bit longer because you can't fly home? So we may as well just create this. And I said, you really think that's possible? So in 1 week, we put together and created Health Dynamics. And I had a real problem at that point going, like, my profile is a supported profile, so I like to connect with people. And I had to take the program online. And I was like, whoa, like, then I'm not going to touch and feel people and connect with them. I'm going to have to do, and I actually had like a little bit of a, an emotional sort of experience or breakdown then going, this is not possible. And then all of a sudden, I was doing consults online. I was doing detoxifications online, and then everything started to explode from there. So now I have also the clinic, but then we have an online program called Health Dynamics, which basically serves people all around the world. And then I internationally traveled with Roger and spoke around the world. And then that's how it really started to grow.
It's so cool what you've done, and I think what's cool about your story, so for everyone here who has a brick and mortar business, anyone here who's a small business owner, you serve a small local market in your local town, your local city, whether you are a professional, whether you're a medical practitioner, or if you're in any sort of job where you're looking to go from sort of an in-person dynamic to being able to have the leverage and freedom an internet business provides you, enabling you to reach people around the world, I invite you to pay really close attention to Jo's story and what she's done here, because what she's done is something that we here at the Ask Method have done, and that is we've kind of used this model that you're experiencing right now for yourself to reach people around the world. We've got students on this call in literally every time zone you can imagine around the world. And Jo, one of the things that you did is following one of our past boot camps, which was a boot camp on boot camp. So we've got boot camps on everything in our business coaching program. We've got, obviously this is our traffic boot camp, but we have webinar boot camps and high ticket boot camps and quiz funnel boot camps and list building boot camps. And we even have a boot camp on boot camps, like how to run one of these events very effectively. And you said, all right, I'm going to do one of these events. And you did, I think it was your first boot camp, if I recall, and maybe tell us a little bit about what happened.
Yeah, well, the first boot camp, my goodness. So Ryan, I actually came into the program originally from a quiz funnel masterclass or boot camp that you did. And I was like, oh, okay, this is really interesting. I want to learn more about this. And then when you started doing the boot camps, for me, it was a little bit of a challenge because I was in Australia. So traveling to and from like America all the time is a pretty big deal. So for me, COVID actually was really good for me being able to connect with you and being in the coaching group because it made it so much easier. So yes, the boot camps are in our 12 a.m. time zone, but at least we weren't traveling. So we did our first boot camp and I just went and studied what you taught us in the boot camp and said, okay, do these different components, map this all out. I pretty much looked at your PDFs. I really beautifully copied them to some
You emulated.
degree.
You emulated before you innovated. Let's just say it like that. You emulated. You followed the process.
Totally.
You did the boot camp in a box, and then what was the result? Tell us what happened.
Yeah, well, I think because Ryan gives us all the components and the ingredients. So the result was that we wanted to have 60 on the boot camp. We got 65. And I wanted to have a high ticket item on the boot camp. And I was like, okay, this is going to be great. I'm so excited. We're going to sell our high ticket on the boot camp. And nobody bought. And I was like, oh my goodness, the tech went wrong. We had, I hadn't done that type of process before where we had multiple screens going. My internet, my computer couldn't handle it. I was in an Apple, everything that you try to get to do. And then nobody bought. I went, oh my goodness. But we had a backup plan because what we did is we sold a ticket that had a consult. But the problem is that then I had to do the consults. So then I'm doing like 30 to 60 consults. And I'm like, oh my goodness, there was so much to do with the boot camp. Then I have to do the consults. So from the consults, people brought, how you teach the in, up and max. So, the up product for us is the detox, which is a $1,500 program. And the max is our $15,000 program. So that's like the 12 months. So people bought from the consults, they bought the detox. And I was like, oh, thank goodness that worked, but it took so much time. And then from the detox, then people then came into the high ticket program. So it ended up being a $50,000 boot camp, but it was a lot of learning experience.
So I just want to pause on that, right? So the first boot camp, which was the one where you were literally, you had your training wheels on. You're learning how to do it for the first time ever. You just followed the process. You had some learning experiences along the way. And in your estimation was, sort of a lot of work and wasn't exactly what you're hoping to happen. You made $50,000, like effectively in a weekend. So I just want to underscore that, like $50,000 in a weekend for your first time doing this is pretty awesome. But from the learnings with that, you were able to take it to the next level, which I think is really cool. And I had the slide here where you shared inside the group what happened the next time. You said, I'm not giving up on this boot camp model. I know things didn't go exactly according to plan, but I want to reach people around the world. I want to do it in this concentrated format, and I want to give it another go. You gave it another go, and what happened next?
Yeah, so what happened is that we did what you said, is ask your clients feedback. So we got 3 people people in America who we really wanted to go more into American market. And we got their feedback and they said, listen, the boot camp was too long. Like 6 hours was too long each day. I reckon you should shorten it to 4 hours. And you did too much content. So we feel like we couldn't actually really implement everything. So reduce your content. I'm like, okay, reduce my content, shorten it. This is all starting to sound really good. And then sell the detox from the boot camp. Don't sell the high ticket, because I think from everything that you're talking about, the detox is what people want. So on day one, we did the boot camp, and everyone's going, can we know more about the detox? Can you tell us more about the detox? I'm going, I'll be talking about that on day two. So just wait. And so then we sold it on day two, and I sold it from exactly what you say to do it like after, the second part, you have your the whole process, you give like so much value. So we give like this really beautiful value piece, and people are like, oh my goodness, this is so amazing. And 15 people, well, 10 people bought straight off within 5 minutes, and 15 people bought off the actual boot camp. It was unbelievable.
And I'm looking at the numbers right here. In totality, when you add it all up together, second boot camp, $77,000 in total when you add up all the different bits and pieces that you put together in the second one. And what I'm hearing little rumblings, if I go to my third slide right here, that you might be on track for a $100,000 month in your business. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the second year of really creating more the online part of the business, because the clinic is very different and has its own revenue model, but this is just separately the complete online global part. And we have been tracking, steadily, bit by bit. But Ryan, since we've been putting in the boot camp process and all the different processes that you have taught, the revenue just keeps on going up and up and up, right? And we actually went to a marketing company, and we actually used a marketing company, and we thought, well, we don't really, and I love that you're doing this boot camp, because we thought we don't really know it. But what we found with that is that they were totally off the mark. So we just went back, we put all the different processes that you said, we did the quiz funnel, it's like 25 to 40 cents a lead to get people in using the quiz hook and the quiz funnel. And then doing the boot camp, and actually, you say, screw it, just do it live, right? And then that actual process, we are now finding that is our in product. So that's now how we actually teach and educate and really warm our clients up, because it's a really, really beautiful understand to build trust. And then people are just naturally coming into the detox. I've never sold that much off, like straight off a webinar. Like, it's unbelievable, your process. And then people are then naturally going into the high ticket because of the value that they're getting in the transformation. So yeah, easily 100K. And I reckon we'll be doubling that next year. So.
I absolutely love that. And I just want to pull this slide up one last time just to show you're literally putting all the pieces together. Like this is what happens when you follow the path. You have a quiz that's getting you 40-cent leads. You have a webinar that's converting better than anything that you've ever done. You're doing the screw it, do it live method with a boot camp that you do periodically where you're making $50,000, $70,000, having $100,000 months and more. You're making more revenue in your business, and you're literally right at the precipice of that scale where the hockey stick goes straight up, because you're dialing in your method, you're dialing in your model, you're dialing in your messaging, and literally following the process. And when you combine what we're learning here at the Traffic Bootcamp, where you're adding more fuel to the fire, instead of 60 people at your boot camps, pretty soon, before you know it, we're going to be adding a 0 to those numbers, and it's going to be a whole nother ball game. So I'm super, super excited for you, and hopefully everyone here, you're like inspired by this, because you're knocking on this doorstep as well. I'll do one thing real quick before we get to your move session. Nikki, I'd love to turn it over to you. I asked you the same question earlier this morning, but I'd love to know, just from your perspective, what is it that you think that Jo brings to the process as an entrepreneur? What are some of the ingredients that she brings that we can all learn from, that you think really attribute to her success?
Well, Ryan, Jo is the real deal. When I say she is a full-blown real deal entrepreneur, and she takes bold action. Like she doesn't hold anything back. She never gives up, never gives up. Every time I talk to her, it's something better and better. It's better and better news. It's just she's constantly up leveling herself and her team. She is an amazing leader. She has a mindset of brass, something that doesn't break, that is, okay, like a diamond, so hard and tough, right? That is Jo. She's just a go-getter and never gives up. She's tenacious to the core.
I love that. You know, it's that courage and grit piece. And for everyone here, you know, wondering why do we do these sort of little sessions like this? So much of your success is dependent on your mindset. Yes, we're learning copy frameworks. Yes, we're learning different ad setups. Yes, we're learning different tricks with images and things like that. But at the end of the day, here's what's going to happen. You're going to start running your ads, and it's not going to go according to plan. Something's going to come up. You don't know what it is, but there's something that's just going to come up, and it's going to be unexpected. And it's going to be in that moment in time where you're going to say, do I give up? Do I throw in the towel? Or is it supposed to be like this? When you mentally prepare yourself that it is supposed to be like that, you're supposed to run into roadblocks. If you're not running into roadblocks and challenges, it means you're not doing it right. You're mentally prepared to handle it, and you move on just like Jo has done right here. Now, Jo, before we move on to our move session, final one of the day, anything that you'd love to share about your experience with Nikki, anything at all that you'd like to add before we do our move session to kick things off?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love Nikki as the coach because Nikki is so accommodating for us because we are totally in different time zones. So she really makes sure she's there for us. But the other thing is Nikki has got some experience in the health field, and she's always like, you know, there was a point that we got really stuck and she said, let me just ask Blake. And she got Blake in. So it wasn't, what I love about the Ask Method as well is that you guys do work so solidly as a team. So if, you know, there seems to be another component or another piece, and then Blake jumped in and helped us with, you know, a little bit of like our quiz funnel and where we needed to tweak things. She was just like, okay, what resource do I need? How do I need it? It wasn't about her having to deliver everything. It wasn't any ego or anything. I just love that whole beautiful team approach. So Nikki, she's always there for me. So it's really, really great.
You know, if you need an endocrinologist, we're going to bring an endocrinologist in. If you need a cardiologist, we're going to bring a cardiologist in. We all work together. We are totally a team in that way. And so get you the help that you need when you need it.
We've just been through an Olympic Games. So we saw Tokyo Olympics, and it takes 4 to 8 years to normally get a gold medal, silver medal, or bronze medal. And the reason they do it is because they do have a coach, and they do have someone who's molding them, moving them, changing things up. You know, in what we learn in the boot camps and in what we learn in the coaching is all the ingredients. But with those ingredients, your coach teaches you where you should put that and what you should do it, like at an Olympic Games, you know, because you don't get a gold medal because you've trained hard or you've been in your business hard. You get a gold medal because you're putting the ingredients in the right position. So just to end with that, because I think the Tokyo Olympics really showed us a lot of courage and grit because it was pushed out another year.
Jo, thank you so much for being here, and so appreciate you, especially given the time that it is with the time zone. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ryan.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so we have our final session of the day, and we're going to get back to work here. And to take us through this next section, I want to invite back the man of the hour, the one, the only, Mr. Charles Coetzee. So speaking of time zone, this man is in South Africa right now, and I don't even know what time it is right now, but he's going to take us through this session here in this next segment. Charles, turn it over to you, my man.
We've covered all of these core ad content elements except for the call to action, right? And that is literally one of the easiest things to do. And as you can see on my screen right now, I'm back into the live, the core ad content sheet. And this final section there is just the call to action. Now, you would be surprised by this, right? You do all of your work to figure out your market, to write about a problem, agitating it, empathizing, presenting a solution, talking about the transformation that's possible, and then not actually telling people what to do. We have to be very prescriptive, and we have to physically tell people what to do. That's one of the things in copy. We literally want to go ahead and tell people what to do. And you can keep it nice and simple. You can just go ahead and say, click the link here for instant access. little emoji fingers pointing over there, and then that is where you are going to go ahead and paste your link, right? Nice and easy, because now they've read all the way up there, because remember, they are programmed to keep scrolling. All right, I've read the school thing, that sounds interesting, but I was busy scrolling. So we have to seal the deal and put in a very prescriptive call to action there. And then remember, we covered the headlines sections already, but then in your ad sheet over here, there's a nice place for you to go ahead and put that in there as well. All right, so this is as simple as it is, guys. Doing the core ad template here with all the examples that we've done. And I've got a couple of people saying that I owe them some money based on that exercise we've done there. So thankfully, I'm all the way here in South Africa and you can't knock on my door. All right, so hopefully that's been helpful just to see how you can construct copy. The main thing is you want to be able to read this out loud. It should flow off your tongue, so to speak. You don't want to have any herky-jerky moments in the copy, because when people read copy, they sub-vocalize that, and therefore you want to make sure that it's going to be a nice, smooth flow. Now, this is what we call the core ad template, right? But we can also simplify this by removing the empathize section and the transformation section. Sometimes all we need is the good old classic template that's known as PAS, and it stands for problem, agitate, solution. All right, and this is literally what a version of that could look like. So let me read through this one. It doesn't have the empathize section in there, and it also doesn't have the transformation. So sometimes we don't have to use those elements. You can literally just pick this version, which will be the simplest version, talk about the problem, agitate it, present your solution, and send them off with a call to action. So I'm going to go ahead and read this out loud. Yelling at your kids and threatening them with punishment is not the way to build a strong relationship, and here's why. The problem of yelling at kids is so prevalent in our society that it's become normal. Sadly, most parents don't realize how damaging this behavior can be, both emotionally and physically. You may find yourself losing patience more easily or resorting to threats more often than you'd like, which in turn leads to fighting over small things, leaving you feeling stressed out and unhappy about parenting in general. All right, so that is agitate. Now we move on over to the solution. The Peaceful Parenting Guide will teach you how to control your emotions when dealing with your children so they respond better when you talk to them without having to yell or threatening punishment. You learn techniques for calming down quickly after an outburst so it doesn't happen again. If you're looking for a parenting style that delivers results, then look no further. Our guide will show you what works from someone who has been there before. Click the link to download your copy now, and then you just go ahead and insert your URL. So as you can see, this one, if I go back to the core ad template that we looked at in our example, it has a lot more copy in it, right? And Peter mentioned this before, it's not an issue of long copy or short copy. It's just about copy should not be boring, right? But sometimes you don't need a lot of copy, and you can really get to the point if someone is looking for a quick solution to that. So when you're going to go and do your homework, you can go ahead and choose each one of these ad frameworks if you want to be an overachiever, so to speak, and write copy for each one of those, or you can just choose one. At the very least, choose one of these frameworks and then go and write your ad. Now, if we think about one of the ways, Peter mentioned this as one of his ad ingredients, is story, right? And story is so powerful because that is just, it activates different parts of your brain. And if you think about little kids, and they're running around at the primary school or the kindergarten, whatever the case will be, being full-on menaces, right? But when it's story time, they're all going to that almost hypnotic state. So as a marketer, it's really important for you to learn how to tell stories. Now, thankfully, and that's what I love about this, we are giving you the blocks. Thankfully, the blocks that we've given you so far in the core ad content, that already makes up the elements that you need for a story. Because think of any storyline, right? Whether it's The Hobbit, whether it's Star Wars, whether it's Rocky, whether it is whatever the case may be. There's always some kind of a problem that then kind of escalates and it agitates to some kind of a, high tension point. You empathize with the characters as the characters develop throughout the movie. And then there's this realization where there's this discovery, which is a solution that then leads to the transformation of that character. And as a result, there's been that growth, there's been that resolution from all of that tension. Can you see how these elements are pulling through to just story? And then obviously, if we present our story like that, we can go ahead and end that with a call to action. So I just want to take a moment there, guys, and I want to let you know that these things that we've given you here today, they literally, you don't need any super fancy framework or whatever the case will be. It comes about connection, and we connect with our market when we understand them as a result of all the work in empathy map, and then going through the brainstorm and enhance sections. And then we construct the ads using these elements by just putting that together. That is why when you learn to write copy and rather assemble or construct copy like this, people are able to connect with you and then go ahead and, click the link in your ad. So let me read through this one. Again, this was from Peter's example. I tell my 3 kids to stop doing something, and they just look at me and carry on like I'm speaking French to them, right? So that was one of those analogies or metaphors that Peter mentioned there. This then inevitably resulted in an all too common yelling match. Okay, that's how it gets worse. There's one time it got so bad, I even spanked one of my kids at the mall, and everyone stared at me like I was a crazy person. Honestly, that was one of the lowest points in my life. I was tired, worn out, and couldn't even look away for a second without something breaking. Thankfully, I stumbled across a new way of connecting with my children using empathy instead of logic and reason. And now my kids and I are able to have a closer bond, and they're actually responsive to what I say, so I never have to resort to yelling at them again. If you're interested in learning more about this, click the link and take my What Empathetic Mother Are You quiz. All right. This is obviously something that we'd spent some time polishing and going over, but if you just look at how you've assembled these parts together, then you can see how effective they are, whether I'm doing that core ad template using all 6 of the elements that we've shown you before, all right? Or if I just drop some of those elements and simply just use the PAS template, which is just problem, agitate, or solve, or whether I go for the more creative approach and kind of use those elements to tell a story. It's a time, it's a place, it's attention. All these elements are being shown in this story over here, and therefore people are able to read it and connect with you in and on a deeper level. So let me know in the comments if you feel a sense of what's the word I'm looking for? Not so much excitement, but just really that feeling that you've gotten these fundamental building blocks that are so versatile and that you can go ahead and use in many of these different ad frameworks. All right. That is so important for us as marketers to learn to put copy together like this. And hopefully for some of you, we've kind of defanged the monster a little bit and kind of just shown you that, this is not rocket science. It just comes down to your research and then putting that research together in a cohesive format using time-tested frameworks, right? So I am looking at the comments here, and my device might be a little bit behind, but let me just scroll up there. All right, great. So Denise is saying, love the way the pieces are coming together. Remember that little Lego man we showed earlier with all the pieces apart? When you put the pieces together, just like Joe did with the success path, that's when we get results, when we put the pieces together in the right order. So I love seeing comments like this one. And super duper, says Dave, thanks, Joel, simple and easy. Yeah, that's what we love to hear. Simplicity on the far side of complexity and keeping things nice and simple. All right, so you have now got a checklist, which is your construct checklist that you are just going to go ahead and follow to write ads using those frameworks that we've shown you. So all of this, again, Michelle has put together an awesome workbook. You can see this on page 35 of the day one workbook. And here is your checklist. The first part is you want to collect your core ad content, right? Like they're saying, mise en place, you want to get everything ready for your copy cooking session. Prepare that beforehand. Give yourself the gift of preparation so that when it comes to assembling this, you can be creative rather than trying to do too many things at the same time. Once you have that, it's time to cook your copy, right? Just follow these frameworks and construct your ad copy using the template. And don't fall into the trap of perfection or wanting to get the stuff to be 100% right out of the gate. It's always about iteration and actually launching your ads. And what are we going to see in some of the upcoming sessions is how you test your ads and how you look at metrics, because that's going to tell you how well does this work. So you don't have to take forever to write an ad. Just write some ads, launch them, look at the metrics, and then you make your tweaks. Ryan always says we test and tweak it to profitability, but we can't test and tweak if we don't finish an ad, right? The third section there is write your headline using any one of those 5 frameworks I provided. If you want to be an overachiever, try and write 50 headlines, 10 headlines per framework, and then you go and use the best one, right? Because it's like songwriting. In order to write a great song, you have to write a couple of bad songs. So just volume, get them out, and then choose the headline you feel resonates best. And of course, you are going to test those as well. Then go and do some image spying using all of the elements that I've shown you today in this session, and using the Facebook ads library just to get those creative juices flowing, get some image ideas, and see what you can do. What image is going to be like the perfect starter, so to speak, to capture that attention so that people are ready to read the rest of your ad. And then the fifth step over here is to go ahead and create your images. Once you've done that portion, it's time to create your images, because you've gotten some ideas and you're able to find images that are relevant to your avatar and that you can then go ahead and put together using any of the tips that I have shown you. And that is that. I believe we've come to the end of this section. So guys, I really hope you got a ton out of this and that you are able to take these fundamental elements and go put together some copy that connects with your market, because that is the first sale that we need to make. Is like, why do you need to pay attention to read my copy and click my ads? If we can do that right out of the gate, set a strong connection, everything down the road becomes so much easier, because people feel seen, heard, and understood, and therefore they will know, like, and trust you and take those next steps with you. So I loved presenting this to you guys today. Thanks, Ryan and the team. And I'm really looking forward to seeing some of your completed ad copy.
Awesome, awesome. Let's give it up for Charles. Let's send Charles some love. We can use that hashtag CharlesLove for being here today and giving us some awesome work. So with that said, we're going to go to our next session here in just a moment. Before we do so, Michelle, I want to turn things over to you just to kind of guide us through what we're doing next, what's happening next, and where do we go from here?
Ryan, did you have anything that you noticed in what Charles was saying there that you thought was a point you wanted to speak to?
No, I just wanted to share, I think one of the questions came through about the order of things inside the actual spreadsheet itself and kind of where things fit. And so I just want to re-emphasize something that Charles said, and I'll emphasize it again. If we go to my screen here, you'll see here that the order that we're writing things in, and this is not expanded, this is the compressed version, but the order in which we're writing things is not in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 order. You can see here is an example of a Facebook ad on the right hand side, and you can see here we're using that body copy formula. In this case here, it's the problem, agitate, empathize, solution, transformation, call to action. That is this bit right here. So you can see right here, even though it is the body copy, from a vertical orientation, it shows up first in the order in this Facebook ad. The image shows up next. That's obviously number one right here. We have our image. And then you can see here, the next thing that shows up, vertically speaking, is item number 4 on the list, which is our display link. So that would be the link to your quiz, for example. It's going to be yourquiz.com or whatever URL you've purchased and set up for that. Then you've got the next bit right here, which is kind of number 2, the hook, the headline, 5 steps to peaceful parenting. So in that case there, that might be, for those of you who did the Quiz Funnel Masterclass, that might be your quiz. What is your parenting style? Quiz, what is your number 1 golf swing killer? That's going to be the hook or the headline there. Then we have that description, which shows up there. It's kind of a line or two. Take the free quiz, take the free 30-second quiz right here, right now. And then last but not least, we have our call to action button, which is going to be, in this case here, as a Facebook ad defined by Facebook. And there'll be an equivalent version of this that would be true for YouTube, for those of you who are using the YouTube path. And just to kind of future pace what's coming around the corner, tomorrow we're going to be going much deeper in the subject of video ad creation. So for those of you asking questions about word count and, what if I'm doing a video ad, the words that we're focusing on here are going to be the words that you would otherwise use to script the video that you might be using, whether it's a Facebook video ad or a YouTube video ad, for those of you who are using that approach. So the copy is going to be consistent. The core content is going to be consistent. The modality through which you express this content will vary depending on the platform path you choose and the ad type that you select. So with that said, Michelle, I'll turn it over to you to cover any questions that have come up inside the thread that we want to cover now before we go to our final session of the day.
Sure thing. And there are several that are coming through. And I'm just going to start with Sherwette's question. And Sherwette says, I feel I want to do ads directly to the offer, not through the quiz. Do you have a best practice on this? And I'm going to throw that to you, Ryan, because I think this is about the success path and that kind of big picture view.
Yeah.
Can I just skip the whole lead capture piece and just go straight to the offer?
Yeah, exactly, right. Do I even need to run ads? Can't I just have someone Venmo me the money straight into my bank account? Do I need to do all these extra steps? Why do I have to do that? Can't I just have them drop off a pile of cash at my house and just call it a day? The reality is, if these steps were not necessary, you wouldn't do them. Right? But the reality is, the reason the success path is designed the way in which it's designed is because when you are advertising on a third-party platform, you don't own the Facebook audience. You don't own the YouTube audience. You don't own the Google Display Network audience and all the different websites that people are trafficking. What you're doing is you're finding a way to put your stuff in front of a pre-existing starving crowd. And some of those people will be ready to buy from you right away. But in most cases, that's going to be a minority of the traffic. And if someone doesn't buy from you right away, if you have not found a way to capture that person so that you can follow up with them over time, you have lost your one and only chance to potentially close the sale. So what we do is we deliver something of value in exchange for their contact information so that we can continue to market to them and follow up over time. How many times on average does someone say no to buying something before they say yes? How many times? Well, most studies show that it's at least 7 times. At least 7 times that someone is presented with someone before they say no. Think about what we do here at the Ask Method Company. We send a lot of email. We run a lot of ads. You've probably seen a bajillion emails just for this Traffic Bootcamp. Why is that the case? Because we know that on average, people say no 7 times before they say yes. If you've not captured that person's contact information and you said, you know what, I'm going to swing for the fences. I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that they buy from me right away. And if they don't, well, I'm just going to move on. Well, it is a very risky proposition, and what we found in our experience, running multiple businesses, building multiple Inc. 500 businesses, being part of giant businesses that have scaled to the moon, working with clients in all sorts of different markets, the most successful and most profitable path is the success path, is to drive traffic to a quiz so that you can acquire the lead, follow up with that lead over time, and then convert that lead into a paying client. That is the way. To quote The Mandalorian, this is the way.
Love it. Now, this question I'm going to direct to you, Charles, because it's related to your last session. And then, Ryan, I might just throw it to you if there's anything else you want to add afterwards. But I think it's a good one that may just help a lot of people position what this transference of info from Empathy Map to the ads. Samantha Ross says, I'm confused. I feel like Charles' example PAS ad was pretty polished. To me, it lacks some of that raw, dirty language that Ryan said we shouldn't sanitize. So are we trying to find a balance between the two? Do you want to speak to that a little bit, Charles?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And what Ryan says about not sanitizing the language is very important. But always there's a sliding scale and a lot of nuance. So if I'm looking at that example, because of, maybe in this topic, we don't want to be a little bit too abrasive or whatever and too on the painful side because, it is a touchy subject for moms who feel bad about yelling at their kids. So we don't want to go too Debbie Downer on them and using some of those super strong language. But in this case, we did. The main thing is just use those elements to guide you. Sometimes you can use those elements, the raw pieces. But if you look at the language here, like yelling at your kids and threatening them with punishment, that is some pretty strong language. And that's some of the things that we saw, that it says, one of the moms had literally said it feels like the only time they listen is when I threaten them with punishment, and she feels bad about that, right? So talking about that, threatening them with punishment, that is going to trigger an emotion a mom feels when she has to use that as a persuasion technique, right? And also then we said it's not the way to build a strong relationship with those kids, because that's really the one thing a mother has in terms of that nurturing effect. She wants to be there, that's in her DNA to be nurturing, but then at the same time, they're tired, they yell, that hurts the relationship. So in that case, when we kind of talk about these elements, just that's where, as a writer and as a marketer, you will find that balance. And I'd love to hear what Ryan's take is on that. And the last thing I'll just say on this as well is, this was kind of what we've literally done here as a first pass to put together those elements. So I would write that, I would come back to that the next day and see if it really is going to be copy that I feel is going to evoke an emotion and the equivalent response by getting them to click the ad and then go through the funnel. So that's kind of how I look at it. I think that unsanitized language doesn't necessarily have to be really strong language. It just has to evoke and connect the emotion so that the person reading that feels like, seen, heard, and understood, and that what I'm saying there mirrors their experience. So that's kind of my take on it, and I'd love to hear Ryan's thoughts around that as well.
We extend the analogy, there's a difference between sanitizing the language and trimming around the edges. Sanitizing the language is basically taking what the market has given you, all the dirty little germs, the dirty language, as I heard, I think someone say it, all the little germs, and you're just bleaching it. It's just gone. It's done. And you're saying, all right, I'm going to do my bit right now. Trimming around the edges is really taking that that beautiful beautiful Brussels sprout, which is what I cooked last night. That beautiful Brussels sprout, and you're just trimming around the edges. You're not destroying it. You're not doing anything with it. You're just trimming around the edges, the tougher pieces, the outer leaves, a bit of the stem. You're not losing the essence of it. You're just trimming around it, and that's absolutely essential, because as you go deep into the market research phase, when you're doing the stealth DDS, you will have deep dive survey responses that are like one giant 500 character run-on sentence. And you can't just take that as is and plop it in a Facebook ad and just go boom, link, click. You can't do that. It doesn't work like that. So you got to trim around the edges, but you want to keep the important parts, right? Just like if you're trimming a flower, if you're trimming an orchid, if you're trimming the stem back, if you're trimming a Brussels sprout, you want to keep the best parts. And that's what you're doing here. And you're refining. You're getting closer and closer to the truth without sanitizing anything along the way. So that problem agitate solution is in some ways a more refined, a tighter expression of what it is that you want to express. There's a little bit less room to maneuver within that, but it gives you a tighter, shorter ad. And like all things, it's powerful to have more than one version of your ad so that you can speak to different segments of your audience, different subgroups within your market. And so that's what I would say to that. Notice the difference between sanitizing and trimming.
So good. Difference between sanitizing and trimming. I would also say that sometimes there's a piece of language that you find in your empathy map, in your DDS, that is so inspiring for your ad idea. It's like you get a whole ad idea off it. And so you can really build an entire ad around this one piece of unsanitized content. And that's another thing that can help you as well. Now, Peter, I'm going to talk to you about this one because you were speaking about story earlier in the day. And here's a question. Lisa Lewis, what if the story we're telling in our ad isn't our story? Is that still authentic?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I shared a couple examples. One, it could be your own personal story. Another example could be a client story. So you start off with, this is what happened to Susan, and you kind of go into Susan's problem and kind of dimensionalize that story. And if you're just starting out and you don't have a personal story, or you're doing an affiliate product and it's not your story, you don't have any clients yet, then you can choose a story in the wild, right? And what that means is, like what news stories came up recently, or, maybe there's some pop culture kind of stories that you can reference, or maybe there's examples from history, an example story that you can leverage that drives home your point. So if you don't have a personal story, you can think outside the box a bit, do a bit of research, kind of start with like what emotion, like Charles said, what emotion and what outcome do we want them to feel? Kind of start with that end in mind, and then kind of, either do some Google research or whatever to really kind of, find any stories out there in the wild, if you don't have any client stories that really match with the messaging that you want, and then use that as your starting point for that type of story ad.
Thanks so much, Peter. I want to jump into this next question from Amy, and Blake, I'm going to ask you to give us a first pass on this one because it's so relevant to the homework. And Amy Maury Verhagen asks, do you write different ads based on the different problems that we've drawn into the spreadsheet? Now, Blake, you got us in the very first exercise of the day to come up with our problems. She says, I'm feeling like each problem agitate, etc., all the core content pieces, makes a whole different theme for the ad. So is it best to stick with just one theme per ad? So do you write different ads based on the different problems?
I would have different, they're all going to be kind of similar in some way, because remember, we're focusing on, the ultimate destination that we're sending people to and the immediate one. So we have that in mind whenever we're going through and brainstorming. So they're going to be similar, but I would say that they're going to be different ads for each problem that you have. They're just different variations that you're going to end up running on Facebook or YouTube to be able to test and improve as you go.
So Amy's just wondering, do you write different ads based on the different problems that we've drawn into the spreadsheet? Because this is going to be really relevant to the homework tonight.
Yes.
And she says she's feeling like the problem agitate makes a whole different theme for the ad. So is it best to stick with just one theme per ad?
Yeah, so you want to think about the different problems that your product or service can potentially solve. So, and the manifestation or the experience of that problem, how it manifests itself in a person's life. So for example, if you have a, how to be a better parent product, well, gosh, think about all the problems that someone might face. Maybe like some of the examples we've talked about, these are all different versions of different ads. Feeling like you want to spank your kids. That's a problem in and of itself. Another problem, feeling guilty about yelling at your kids. So after the kids have gone to bed and you're sitting there and finally, like, all of us perfect parents, right? We never lose our tempers with our kids. Our kids go to bed and then we feel guilty. We say, oh man, I shouldn't have been so harsh. They're perfect little angels. I'm going to do better tomorrow. So, that problem. The problem of in a moment having a teachable moment with your child and not handling it the way that you were hoping to maybe handle it. Maybe not prioritizing your role as a parent and letting work creep in and workaholism just take over your entire life. Maybe not being the best spouse, the husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend or partner that you could be because you're putting all of your energy into your kiddos. So, I mean, we could go on. I could probably spend the next hour articulating different problems that manifest themselves in different ways in this one particular market that a single product or service or a single quiz could help solve. So if you find yourself losing your patience with your kiddos, you might find that this quiz is incredibly helpful. It's an assessment to help you identify what your natural parenting style is and what naturally triggers you as a parent. Take this free quiz to find out your parenting style right now. Now that could, you just think about it like almost, think about it like little streams that are flowing into one river. I don't have my iPad set up, but I would draw this. So you think about all the little streams that are just flowing into this one large river where all roads lead to the immediate thing you want people to click on after the ad, whether that's your quiz, your lead magnet, or whatever it may be. And yes, you could have dozens of different problems potentially at the same time. Don't overwhelm yourself and say, oh, does that mean I need to create 100 different ads? Just get started. Remember, screw it, just do it. You don't have to get it perfect, you just have to get it going. So pick a couple, pick 4, and get started.
I love it. And if I can ask one follow-up question to you, Ryan, just on that same point, because I've seen this come up a bit, and it was just asked again by Lutendo, who says, before problem, would it be equally effective if you started on a high note, then dive into the problems? So high, then low. And I think we've seen a few people saying, do I always have to start with the negative? Do I always have to start with the problem? We're starting with the problem as the thinking point, but in my ad, do I need to start with the negative?
The answer is you don't necessarily need to. It is a very, I hesitate to use the word easy, but it is a proven path that you can follow. Problem, agitate, solution. You are meeting people with the conversation that's already going on in their mind. People naturally think in terms of problems. Just if you think about it, if you just reflect on your internal dialogue that you have on a daily basis, you constantly pose yourself different questions. That's just how we naturally talk to ourselves inside our mind. And what we're really doing is our minds are trying to solve whatever problem we're faced right now. So what should I, you wake up in the morning and say, oh, what should I wear today? That's the problem that you're trying to answer, you're trying to solve. So gosh, struggling and trying to figure out what to wear. Same thing when it comes time to cook dinner at night, right? It's like, what are you going to cook for dinner? Your brain is saying, okay, what am I going to cook? And really there are 100 embedded problems within this. What can I cook in the time that I have allotted? What do I cook with the ingredients that I have in my fridge? What do I cook that's going to simultaneously taste good, feed my family, make my picky eater happy, and my health conscious other child very happy as well? You're solving these problems in your mind. And so when you meet people with the conversation that's already going out in their head and they catch you in an ad or a video or a post and they say, oh my gosh, this is the exact problem I'm trying to solve right now. It's just a natural segue into your messaging. So that's why we use it. It's why we lean on it. Now, is that the only way to communicate? No. Another way that you can communicate with people is with the opportunity, right? So you can lead with opportunity. There's never been a better time in history to be building a digital business than right here, right now, today. Why is that? Let me explain. So that's not necessarily a problem, it's more of an opportunity-based opening. So, if we were to do a boot camp on copy, for example, if we were to spend 3 days focused on copy, we could spend nothing but 3 days focused on different openings for leading people into your world. Whether it's different questions that you ask, starting with different problems, using opportunity. I mean, there are dozens of different ways that you can lead people in. Of course, copy is one piece of the traffic puzzle. It's an important piece, but it's just one piece of the puzzle. So in the time that we have to focus on this particular topic, problem, agitate, solution, or the longer version where you start with that problem and then go into the agitate and then go into the empathize and go into the solution and go into the transformation and go into the CTA is a great place to start. It's a proven path and it's one that you can count on and you can rely on to be successful.
Yeah, your phrase, Ryan, emulate before you innovate, is definitely one that I think is going to help everybody tonight when you're doing your homework. And we're going to give you some more details on that homework in just a little bit. But coming up now, we have been talking so far with Charles about the core ad template, the shorter PAS version of the template, the video, the story template, sorry. Now what we're going to talk about is the retargeting ad. So that's one other kind of ad that you can use this core ad content for. And to help us round out our ad types for the day is Mr. Blake Steppen. Let's welcome him back for his retargeting, remarketing ad tutorial.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And let's go ahead and dive right in. So let me share my screen really quick. All right, so we're going to be talking about using what we've been learning today about our core ad content with remarketing. So how specifically does it work whenever we're thinking about our remarketing ads? So just real quick, what is retargeting in the first place? So retargeting is it reminds your potential buyers to take the next step in a sequence they have already displayed interest in. So that's kind of a mouthful, but in short, simple terms, it's showing ads to people based on their previous behaviors. So for example, if I'm shopping for a webcam because I have an important boot camp coming up and I need to make sure I show up great, and I'm online shopping for it, but I don't actually make the purchase, then later that day, I'm on Facebook and I actually see the ad in my Facebook feed. That's remarketing. That is essentially what remarketing is at a very base level. So this is how it fits into your tactical traffic plan. So whenever you're starting with Facebook, you're going to start with Facebook as well for your retargeting content as well. And if you're starting with YouTube, you'll start with YouTube for your retargeting content. So your retargeting ads should focus on moving people forward to the next step in your funnel. And essentially what that means is this. Let's say at a very, very high level, this is your funnel. You have an ad that goes to an opt-in, that goes to a way to convert that opt-in into purchasing the product at the very end of it. So you have your ad, your opt-in, the way in which we're going to convert that opt-in into buying our product. And that's essentially the success path. So you have a market that you run ads to, you have one way to generate leads, one way to convert those leads, and one product to sell those leads. But when people come through your funnel, let's say some people may not make it all the way through that sequence right away. They'll see an ad, they'll land on your page, they'll opt in, and then they'll stop. They won't continue through that funnel. And that's where retargeting ads come in. They can help push people through that funnel where we live in a world when email open rates are declining year by year. So now we have to have other creative ways to actually get people to move forward in the funnel. We can't just collect the email. We need to have other ways to follow them around and actually remind them that they need to move forward to that next step in the funnel. And now, not everyone's going to be using a webinar. For example, you could have a way to generate leads, and the way to convert those leads could be a long form sales letter. It could be the same way in which, not everyone's using a quiz, not everyone's using a webinar, but all we're talking about here is sending people to the next step. So whatever that next step is for you is what you would be sending people to. So creating your retargeting content. Let's talk about the process. The process is exactly the same as we've been through today. It's the exact same process that we've been going through. So let's recap that process really quick. We have our core ad content. You have the problem. What's the problem your market's having? You agitate that problem. Then you empathize with the market. You tell them what breaks your heart about the fact that they have to have that problem. You introduce your solution. You show them what life is like on the other side of that term, on the other side of that solution, then you call them to action. That's our core ad content at a high level. And what we've been through today is we've talked about brainstorming. So whenever we're sitting down to do our retargeting ads, the good news is that we've already kind of done this work. We don't have to redo this work. We can pull inspiration from our brainstorm that we did earlier today and use it whenever we're creating our retargeting ads. And the same thing for enhance. We've done the enhance work. We can pull inspiration from the enhance content and use it to create our retargeting ads. The only thing left that we need to do is construct the ad. But before we get there, let's talk about the main differences between retargeting and just a general top of funnel ad. So with retargeting, you're ultimately going to be sending people to a new destination. So this isn't always the case, but for the case of this boot camp, what we would like you to focus on, and ideally, you want to be sending people to the next step in the funnel. You want to keep moving people forward to that next part of the funnel. And retargeting ads are a reminder. You're reminding them that they already expressed interest in your solution to their problem. So whenever they see an ad, you want to remind them. So whenever you're thinking about images for retargeting ads, you want the images to be a reminder of that thing that they already expressed interest in. So it's a good place for branding. It's a good place to put your face in front of them. It's a good place to show testimonials. You want to remind people that they expressed interest in that thing that they just said that they were interested in. Also, retargeting ads are a great opportunity to prove why they should move forward. So it's a great opportunity to leverage success stories and testimonials in your ads. And urgency is powerful in any. It's probably the most powerful tool a marketer could have, but it's ultra powerful whenever we're talking about retargeting. So people are kicking the can. They're kicking the tires with you, not kicking the can. They're kicking the tires with you. So they've shown some interest. They're kind of intrigued by it a little bit. Let's give them a reason to move forward now. So here's an example. You know, you're proving why someone should move forward. This is an ad that Ryan was running. So you have urgency in the ad. You know, it says ends tonight, want to go beyond quiz funnels and get one-on-one help from for your entire business. And then he has a testimonial in the ad of someone who's had success within the coaching program. So this is a retargeting ad to book a call for a coaching program. So whenever we're thinking about our core ad content, the problem piece is going to be a little bit different. So in the problem section of your core ad content, you want to remind them of their previous action and move them forward in the funnel. But it's essentially, it's a reminder that the problem that they have still lingers, whether it's a new future-paced problem or it's still the core problem that they have, it's still lingering there. And that's kind of what you want to do in the problem section of your core ad content. And so that looks like similar to what Ryan had in his ad before. You can start it with, you know, are you still interested in? Are you still interested in leveraging your natural born empathy to be a more peaceful parent for your child? Or, you know, do you want to go beyond that solution that you had before into something that's even better? So you're reminding them that there's still problems that linger for them, but they have already been interested in what you do. So here's how this works whenever you're actually going in to create using the core ad content sheet. So I'm going to open up the core ad content sheet, and at the bottom, there are some tabs, and there, you should see a retargeting template and a retargeting template example at the bottom in your tabs. You may have to scroll over, but in that template, before I actually start putting things in there, I'm gonna keep in my mind where I want these people to go. Am I sending them to a webinar or to a sales letter? Where am I sending these people after they've opted into my funnel and I'm retargeting to them? Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick a quick reminder. So for the parenting example that we have, still interested in is probably a good one. I think so. Still interested in leveraging, and I would probably come back. This isn't the best. I would come back and tweak this, but in leveraging your natural, that is not how you spell natural born empathy to become a more peaceful parent. So question mark. So you're reminding them that they took action with you. They took that action to fill out your quiz and opt in for your thing, but there's still problems that linger for them. You're reminding them that there's still this lingering issue out there for them. So you start there, and then you go back to the brainstorm that you've been doing earlier. And for all of the other pieces in your retargeting, what you would do is you would pull over some of this. You'd pull inspiration from the enhanced section that you did earlier today. You'd pull, maybe you have some other like brainstorming agitate pieces that you haven't used yet that probably better fit that next step. You'd start pulling those pieces over. And for sake of time, I'm not going to do every single piece because we've been through this a lot today, but I would essentially just copy this, because maybe I'm interested in that embarrassment piece, I would bring it back over to my retargeting template and I would paste it in here. And I would do a little bit of another brainstorming session. And then I would go back and go through Charles, cook your copy, and really kind of put all of those pieces in place for retargeting. So with that, we have a checklist for you. It's on page 37 of the workbook. And it goes like this: determine the destination. Where is that next step in the funnel that you're sending people to? What is that next piece that you're sending people to? Then you're going to pick that reminder, pick that problem reminder that you have. Like, you're reminding them that there's a problem that still lingers. And this is going to kind of work as that opening line for your ad. Then you're going to pull ideas from your brainstorm and enhance section, and you're going to start bringing them over to the retargeting template. And then you're going to cook your copy and construct your ads. That's it. Simple 4-step process. And that is retargeting for the bootcamp in a nutshell. Michelle, am I missing anything, or how are we on time?
You're doing great. You are spot on time. And I think that's been a good overview, so we can start to think about the retargeting ads and the content for those. And it's going to segue nicely into explaining the homework, which we're going to do shortly.
Blake, that was great. And the thing that I'll just chime in, because I was answering as many questions as I could in the chat as Blake was going through, is so a few things with this. So remember, your remarketing ads are ads that are designed to get people to the next place in your funnel based on where people dropped off. And if you remember from the tactical traffic path from this morning, you're going to be running retargeting ads on the same platform that you start with for your front end ads. So for example, if you're doing the Facebook path, which is the recommended path, you're going to be running retargeting ads on Facebook until you generate at least one sale. You got to get that first sale. That's the name of the game. Then and only then do you consider expanding to the other networks. If you're doing the YouTube path, it's the same thing. You focus on YouTube, you run remarketing ads on YouTube until you've generated that first sale, and then you expand to the other pieces. So the name of the game there is to stay focused so that you're not putting too much on your plate, but you're tapping into the power of remarketing, because what you're doing here is, for people who have left along the way, you're saying, hey, remember that thing that you just did earlier today or yesterday or the day before that? Do you want to finish where you started? Go ahead and pick up where you left off. That's the theme of what you're trying to do with a remarketing ad, to keep kind of inching people forward to the next step in the process. We'll talk a little bit more about how to do all that technically a little bit later on inside the bootcamp, but for now, just getting clear on both the high-level strategy and then what you're actually going to be saying, what you're going to be putting as the content in those ads. And we're going to wrap things up with one of our favorite rituals to bring things to a close, and that is, based on everything we've covered here today, what has been your single biggest takeaway? And the way you do that is just use the hashtag with the word takeaway in all caps. So hashtag takeaway in all caps. Let us know inside the comment thread what's been your biggest takeaway. So when you look at your notes, when you look back at everything you've written down, look back at all the work that you've done, all the ad copy that you started to write, all the formats and frameworks and examples that you've seen, all of the work you did with the Empathy Mac, the time that you spent in the breakout sessions with your fellow boot campers, the time that you spent at the networking lunch, for those of you who wanted more time connecting with your peers, for those of you who used the time to get your homework done, for those of you who spent time at the Catchbox sessions getting your questions answered. What is your single biggest takeaway from today's session? It could be an insight, it could be a key learning, it could be an aha moment that you had along the way where things started to crystallize, things started to come together. What has been your single biggest takeaway from today's session, our first day of the Traffic Bootcamp? Go ahead, inside the comment thread, use the word takeaway, all caps, hashtag, and I'll take a moment to read off some of our biggest takeaways of the day. If you bear with me for 1 second, and I hit the refresh button and see if I can get some of our takeaways to load. And Michelle, I'd love for you to join me in this as we go through some of these right now. And
I'm happy to participate, Ryan.
Go for it. I'll let you start.
Would you like me to start off?
Go ahead, because I'm hitting the refresh
Okay,
button.
I got some here.
Gary is
There's some
about to
great
die
ones.
over here, coughing out a lung, but I think he's alive. I might have to chime in for him.
There's a few that talk about just how easy it is to write copy. So Francis Atherstone, takeaway, how easy it was to write the copy. Bettina, how to write ads. I was really confused in this area. And Sean O'Meara says, preparation may seem boring and basic, but it's foundational to start, to scale, and to optimize.
I love it. I might need you to do another round of them because my Facebook post is not loading. I'm going to try this one more time. I'm going to start back from the beginning, but I'll let you do it one more time as
this one you would never read out because you wouldn't boast about it, but I'm going to read it out. Steve Newton says, hey, the quality of your content surpasses what I've seen from anyone else selling traffic and ad copy courses. Keep on being you. Lutendo liked the ad ingredients and the options to use them. And Pagel really related to the ad copy format. And this is a great one from John Peters. Take imperfect action and make small, consistent improvements.
Love it. Got it. I've got things rocking and rolling here. I love it. So Callan says getting clarity on how to speak to our target, which is awesome. Joel Lund says systematic steps simplifies success. He is on an alliterative roll right now, so to speak. How do you like that one, Joel, for the feedback and response on that? Barry says all sessions were very educational. Enjoyed the enthusiasm. Awesome. You know, we need to keep things fun. I mean, this is traffic. You know, we got to keep it fun and exciting and have a little bit of fun about what we're doing right here. Patricia, love adding the ingredients. Yeah, it's like cooking, isn't it? Just throw a little bit of spice and a little bit of Salt Bay right onto your ads. AJ Visak says overall clarity and direction with the right framework. Uwe says everything comes together easily and faster, such as PAS, problem, agitate, solution. Thank you. Rosalia says step-by-step micro commitments. And Valerie says biggest takeaway, this makes it easy. Michelle, what else you got?
Yeah, Michelle Laurie says the ad templates are gold. So she's got those to take and use. Chloe Steele, her biggest takeaway was the breakout sessions. She really enjoyed that breakout. Poet Woods, his big takeaway, the copy writes itself when I follow the instructions properly.
Love it. Eric says, don't bleach the language of the market. Instead, do some clippings, which I think is a paraphrased version of what we said before, and I love it. Gene says, most loved the Excel document that will be key in writing my ads. You're going to have that for the rest of your life. You'll be able to use that over and over again for any ad that you ever write from now until the end of time. I encourage you to use that, reuse that, and leverage that. Kelly says, don't sell straight from the ads. Lead capture only first. Removing people from a rented piece of real estate, Facebook, Google, YouTube, to real estate that you own. And once you own that real estate, you can follow up over and over and over again, and you don't have to keep paying to run traffic to that audience once you've brought them into your world. So absolutely. Camille says, breakdown in the structure of the ads, retargeting strategy was excellent. Take care, guys. Have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow in day 2 of the Traffic Bootcamp. Take care. Bye-bye.